Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're heading into a place that, well, visually it's a bit of a puzzle these days. Aberdeen and Aptly Chau on Hong Kong Island's south side.
Yeah, it's that immediate contrast, isn't it? You look out at the Aberdeen typhoon shelter,
Yeah.
and what do you see? Gleaming, massive luxury yachts crammed into the eastern side.
Right next to, these older traditional fishing boats and even the big modern steel trawlers doing the actual work.
Exactly. That visual clash, that's our starting point. Because this area historically was the heart of Hong Kong's water community. We're talking maybe 50,000 people living on the water at its peak.
It's an entire floating city,
Yeah.
self-sufficient, organized, quite incredible, really.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to peel back those layers. We're looking beyond just the pretty harbor view. We've got 5 key stories about identity,
Yeah.
survival, faith, industry, all tied to specific places.
Hidden gems, you could call them. Places that really bring these deep histories to life for you.
Precisely.
Okay, so where do we start? The foundation seems to be, well, a pretty long history of injustice.
It really is. You have to understand the Tanka people, the traditional boat dwellers. For centuries, under the Qing dynasty, they weren't just poor, they were legally classified as outcasts. Jim and Huji.
Outcasts,
Meaning they were barred from living on land, couldn't take imperial exams, couldn't intermarry with land dwellers, the Khoiman, just intense social and legal discrimination forcing them onto the water.
Wow, okay. But then there was a change, right? We found this reference to 1729.
Ah, yes. The Yangzheng Emperor's decree, huge on paper. It officially removed that outcast status, declared the Tanka were fundamentally good people and should be treated equally.
So, problem solved. Liberation.
Well, that's the fascinating part, not quite. It's a classic case of law versus reality. The decree encouraged settlement on land, yes, but with a massive condition.
Which was?
You had to be able to build housing. If you were poor, which most Tanka were after centuries of marginalization, the decree literally said you should just remain in your boat.
So it was liberation for the wealthy few. The rest were still stuck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It created this economic barrier that kept the discrimination alive for, well, another 200 years practically.
That explains so much. Why thousands were still living on those houseboats, the Zhujiating, right up until after World War II.
It does. The move to land, when it finally happened for the majority, wasn't usually some eager embrace of opportunity. It was often passive, even forced. Think about the big typhoon shelter fires in the 1960s. People lost everything.
Right. Driven ashore by disaster or later by urbanization.
Precisely. And that leads us to our first hidden gem, a physical marker of this huge, slow transition. You need to look at places like Yue Kwong Chuen.
The public housing estate?
Yes, or similar early estates built specifically for fisherfolk. These weren't just buildings, they were instruments of assimilation. The first time the government provided concrete homes on land for these communities. It marks that profound shift from boat cabin identity to, well, urban resident identity. A real note of change.
Okay, so before that big shift really took hold, let's picture that floating city again. The sources call it a waterborne kingdom scroll. That sounds incredibly vibrant.
Oh, it was. Imagine a whole ecosystem on the water. Not just the houseboats people lived on, often retired fishing vessels.
But mobile shops, too.
Absolutely. Everything you needed. Grocery boats, zahoding,
Yeah.
little boats selling firewood, machak sauting, mobile tea cafes, and famously, the noodle boats, the fenting.
Ah, the origin of Ting Zai noodle.
The very origin, cooked and served right there on the water. You even had ice cream boats, swegouting, navigating through the shelter in summer.
Incredible. And social life.
Banquet boats, getting kwan, for celebrations, keeping the community connected. It was intricate.
But if we had to pick one vessel, one craft, that really symbolizes what's been lost from that floating industrial ecosystem.
For me, it has to be the sun-drying boat, the Shai Yutuan. These were unique, not for fishing. They were fixed platforms, no engine, often no distinct bow or stern, basically floating processing decks.
What did they process?
Mostly seafood. They were famous for producing things like Kowloon dried fish or dried squid, Geelong diopian, large-scale drying right there on the water. It was a specific handcraft, a whole way of processing,
And that's gone now.
almost entirely. The skill, the knowledge, it's faded dramatically, which makes our second hidden gem so poignant.
What is it?
It's not a building, it's an activity.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's still a single remaining sun-drying boat genuinely used for drying seafood in the traditional way. Just one.
Wow. A living piece of history.
Exactly. It's non-material cultural heritage made visible. So, for you, the experience is active. Take a sampan, ask around, try to find that boat, And while you're out there,
Get some authentic Ting Zai noodles from a boat vendor.
you got it.
Uh-huh.
Pair the search for the last drying boat with the taste of the last mobile food tradition. That connects you right back to that waterborne scroll.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit from the social and economic to the geographical and spiritual, the land and sea itself. How does this specific coastline shape the story?
Well, fundamentally, it might have even shaped the name of the city itself. Fragrant Harbor, Hung Shing.
How so?
The theory links it to Waterfall Bay, Kubu Wan, just west of Aberdeen Harbor. There's a significant waterfall there that cascades fresh water directly into the sea.
Ah, fresh water, critical for ships.
Absolutely critical in the age of sail. This was a major resupply point for ocean-going vessels needing fresh water. It connects Aberdeen directly to early maritime trade, including the trade in fragrant incense wood, Guangsheng.
So the fragrant harbor name might literally come from the resources found right here.
It's a strong possibility.
Yeah.
But that same geography, the complex coastline, the inlets, the coves, it wasn't just good for trade.
Pirates.
Exactly. It was perfect territory for them, especially in the 19th century during the Qing dynasty's decline. The most famous local pirate, Chong Tsai.
I've heard that name.
He supposedly used this area extensively. The hidden coves were ideal bases, reflecting just how lawless the seas could be back then.
So the hidden gem here is geographical.
It really is. Waterfall Bay itself. Visiting it lets you think about both sides, the vital lifeline for legitimate trade and the haven for maritime outlaws. And then there are the local legends.
Treasure.
That's the story. The sea caves around Chau are rumored to be where Chong Tsai stashed his loot. Adds a bit of adventure to exploring the coast.
Definitely. Okay, so survival on this coast wasn't just about finding water or avoiding pirates. It was about the sea itself. And that brings us to faith.
Yes, and again, it's specialized. The Tanka were primarily coastal fisherfolk. Their biggest daily threat wasn't necessarily getting lost on the high seas, but rather sudden storms, localized bad weather close to shore.
So they didn't just pray to Mazu or Tinhao, the main sea goddess.
They did, especially for longer voyages. But for their daily nearshore work, another deity was arguably more central.
Hung Shing.
Hung Shing,
What was his domain?
protector of nearshore fishing. Crucially, he was believed to control weather, the wind, the rain. Absolutely vital for people whose lives depended on predicting and surviving coastal conditions.
That makes perfect sense. Faith tailored to their specific environment and risks.
And it reflects the pragmatism of their lives, too. There's an old tradition mentioned, praying specifically to Hung Shing for sons.
Kusi.
Why sons specifically?
Think about the industry. Fishing back then was incredibly labor-intensive, dangerous work. Having sons meant having more hands, essential for the family's economic survival. It's piety shaped by harsh necessity.
Right, so the spiritual hidden gem must be connected to Hung Shing.
Without a doubt. The physical heart is the Chau Hung Shing Temple. It's the anchor for this specific Tanka faith tradition.
And is there a time to see that faith in action?
Absolutely. The peak cultural experience is the annual Hung Shing Festival. It's held on the 13th day of the second lunar month. Going then, you'd see this unique maritime heritage come alive. It's powerful.
Okay, bringing all these threads, identity, the floating economy, geography, faith into the present day, what does the harbor look like now, sociologically?
It looks like, well, a collision, a visual representation of capital, class, and the often painful transition of industry. We mentioned the yachts earlier, but fishing is still a serious industry here, right?
Oh, yes, and it's highly advanced. We should remember, Hong Kong fishing was noted as being technologically sophisticated even back in 1947. Today, it's intensely capital-intensive. Those new steel-hulled trawlers you see,
Yeah.
they operate in pairs, and a single pair can cost around HKD $30 million. These are serious investments in production.
30 million!
Wow.
But they're sharing the space with symbols of pure leisure.
And that's narrative 5, the spatial conflict. Go to the eastern side, do the Aberdeen Boat Club, the Yacht Club, the mooring spots, the berths. They're described as full, mambalol, bursting,
With yachts.
overwhelmingly with luxury yachts. We found quotes from older fishermen saying, quite sadly, that there are now more yachts than fishing boats in parts of the harbor.
That must create tension.
It does. Real social friction. It's not just about visual contrast. It's about competition for limited resources, primarily berth space. You have the indigenous fishing community using the water for livelihood, bumping up against yacht owners, using it for leisure. Different worlds, different priorities, crammed together.
So the hidden gem here isn't really a thing but an observation.
I think so. The most insightful gem is simply to stand there and see it. See the juxtaposition. The polished, exclusive yacht club, right beside the working fleet of iron-hulled trawlers. It's like a real-time lesson in modern capitalism's impact on a historic space. It forces you to think about city ethics, about who the harbor is for.
And this transition, this pressure, it affects the support industries too.
Critically, think about the shipyards, those
Yeah.
places in Chau and Wangchukang that have built and repaired these vessels for decades. They're facing a huge problem. No one to inherit Wuyan Gaiching.
A lack of successors.
Yeah.
The skills are dying out.
Exactly. The younger generations aren't going into that demanding, skilled shipyard work. So you have this kind of ship of Theseus problem looming. Even if you have the high-tech fishing boats, if the infrastructure and the skills to maintain them disappear, what happens to the industry then?
It's a profound question. Okay, so we've journeyed from that 1729 decree, the long fight for basic identity on land.
Through the amazing floating city, symbolized by maybe that lone, sun-drying boat still working,
To the legends of pirates and the specific faith needed to survive the coast, anchored by the Hung Shing Temple.
and landed right here in the modern harbor, watching this tense dance between multi-million-dollar trawlers and ever-increasing numbers of luxury yachts.
It leaves us with a really important reflection, doesn't it? As Aberdeen becomes more of a tourist spot, a scenic view.
We have to be really careful ethically. The Tanka community, the fisher folk who are still there, they aren't just quaint scenery for visitors. Their knowledge, their skills, their resilience, their specific way of life, that's the real living heritage, not just the old boats or the picturesque setting.
Yeah, it's about respecting the people, not just consuming the view.
Precisely. Which brings us to that final, maybe unsettling thought to leave you with.
Go on.
When the yachts vastly outnumber the working boats, when skills like making Kowloon dried fish completely vanish, when the shipyards struggle to find anyone to pass the torch to, does the Aberdeen harbor you see today still genuinely hold the soul of the original fishing port? Or is it becoming something else entirely?
A tough question, and one that hangs over the future of this unique and incredibly precious water space.